Hello, my name is Jason JROCK Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com, and our special guest today is guitarist Ian Mackenzie from the band Defy Tyrant. That's correct, right? Is it Defy Tyrant or Defy The Tyrant?
Defy The Tyrant. Yes,
Defy The Tyrant. Okay. Excuse me for that, but anyways, that's the first place I'd like to start off because actually Defy The Tyrant is actually a song on the album, and so I was kind of curious. It's always hard to come up with a band name, but why did you think that song was so good that it was worth naming the band after?
Man, it's kind of that's kind of not how it went down.
Okay,
actually.
okay, yeah.
We were looking at a bunch of different names. This is 4.5 years ago, I think, at this point.
Yes.
And we were sitting down, and we were just having fun and getting together and jamming a little bit. And then we realized, this is kind of turning into something I'd like to play. We'd like to play some shows. And,
yeah, we need a name, of course. Yeah,
we need a name. You can't just go up as Untitled. In fact, that name's already taken.
Yeah.
So, we threw a bunch of names in the hat, essentially, and Slim, the bass player, came up with Defy the Tyrant, which at the time really matched our singer at the time was very much part of that mindset. He really liked writing songs about he was a 3%er and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And so he was kind of into that stuff, and so we were kind of like, okay, and majority rules,
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. So the name for the band, I'm assuming, came first, and then you wrote the song later. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's actually a song. We lost the original lead singer, and we kept writing music, and then Stu, our lead guitar player, came up with this great riff for Defy the Tyrant, the song, and I was actually the singer at the time, and I wrote this song, the lyrics, the chorus, and I had different verses, and the song kicked ass, and that's the way it stayed.
Oh wow, that's kind of interesting. Now let me ask you, Ian. You're obviously a rhythm guitar player, but you said at one point you were the lead singer. So talk a little bit about that transition as singing something that you're also kind of able to do, but you're more interested in being a guitar player or focusing on.
Oh yeah, being a guitar player is so much easier. I've done the lead singing thing in bands before. And, and it's fun. It's got its pluses, but playing guitar is so much more relaxing.
I would imagine being the front man, you gotta worry coming up with being the front and center, and all eyes on you, and basically come up with all those stage raps the singers need to come up with, and just got to do that and concentrate on remembering the words as well as the guitar parts.
Yeah, the guitar is it's so much easier, and I'm good doing just some background vocals and things like that, and I'm happy doing that.
Wow.
Then I get to act like a complete fool on stage, and no one pays attention.
So, talk a little bit about how you and the other guitar player interact with each other on stage. I mean, I'm assuming he does most of the lead work, and you do the rhythm parts, or do you ever switch off?
He does. Wow. We do kind of a switch off. Him and... How the hell am I going to say this? Let me learn how to speak again real quick.
Okay, yeah, I lost my thought for a minute.
It's okay if I say fuck, by the way.
No, that's all right. We're on the internet, so it's cool.
All right, cool. So, me and Stu and I... Oh, what the fuck am I even saying at this point? All right, one of our biggest influences is Guns N' Roses.
Oh, wow.
We love Guns N' Roses, and one of the best things about Guns N' Roses is how Slash worked with Izzy on that first record and Spaghetti Incident. And I think part of Use Your Illusion, there's some rhythm stuff there, but Izzy goes back and forth between some what you might call lead parts and rhythm parts. Even though Slash does the majority of solos, it's almost like having two lead guitar players the entire song. It's just Slash throws the solos. So we do a lot of that.
Wow, that's
where I play. We're playing like these mixed rhythms and mixed leads, and we do have a few songs that are a little bit more straightforward. I play strictly rhythm. He plays strictly lead. But like on that song, "Defy the Tyrant," we're switching back and forth.
Wow.
You know, Voices, another one where I play some leads and he plays most of them. You know.
Well, that's like kind of interesting. You know, it's cool. Interesting that you bring up Guns N' Roses as an influence. I mean, you know, Slash is a great lead guitar player, as you said, but Izzy Stradlin, anybody that's you know, a fan, especially of original Guns N' Roses, to me, he was always kind of the band's secret weapon. I mean, he didn't do a lot of interviews. He's kind of a mystery guy of the band. Didn't talk a lot. He's kind of he didn't really hang out much with other guys. He did his thing. Kind of the Keith Richards of the band, if you will. And I know he's very much influenced by the Stones and Keith Richards. Also, another interesting thing is, well, you're right. Izzy's a great guitar player. He doesn't get credit for that as much as he should. I think what he really brought into Guns N' Roses was he was also a very gifted songwriter. I mean, so much to the point, like talking about the Use Your Illusions album, he has that song on there, 14 Years, that not only did he write it, but he did a lead vocal. And so we kind of find out on that album, hey, Izzy can write and he can sing. And I'll tell you, my all-time favorite thing Izzy Stradlin ever did was that first solo album he put out back, I think it was in 1992 or so, called Izzy Stradlin and the Juju Hounds. And the single they released for that, you can look it up on YouTube if you haven't heard it. It's called Shuffle It All. It's really kind of
check it out.
It's kind of like a real Stonesy kind of, and Izzy's doing all the singing, and it just when you like hear this song and you watch the video, or you go on YouTube, I urge you to try to look up any of his solo songs, and you'll just be impressed with what a great singer the guy is as well.
No, he always did great. Him and Duff were the key to that band, in my opinion. Duff has some of the best bass runs that you're ever going to hear that don't walk over anything, but fill in. Because you got Izzy and you have Slash playing these dual leads during a lot of the songs, and Duff kept that, you know, rhythm section really going. And both of them had great vocals that they added to the music. And I think, personally, I listen to a lot of the Slash's Snake Pit and things like that. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the doo-wop style kind of things that you hear on that first record, Use Your Appetite for Destruction, I think that's mostly Izzy's stuff, because I don't hear Slash ever do any of that other than when Izzy was around. You know? So, it's just really cool sounding stuff that Izzy was able to do. And
like you said, Duff McKagan, he's also a key part of that original sound. I mean, he's a great songwriter in his own right. He's a great frontman, a lead singer. I mean, if you checked out, he had a band called Loaded. You can check this stuff up probably if you go on YouTube as well, if you've never had a chance to hear it. But that's why I think when Velvet Revolver, that's another band where Guns N' Roses wasn't performing for a while. You had Duff, Matt Sorum, and Slash, and then they got Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots. They only put out like 2 albums, but I tell you, man, it was almost like Guns N' Roses minus Axl Rose. But it was, and it kind of shows you what, you know, Matt, Duff, and Slash kind of brought into Guns N' Roses.
It's 100% true, and if you watch that documentary, there's a documentary about that band, Velvet Revolver, and something that they said, and I think it stands out. You can tell a rock star when they enter the room. You know, and I remember, and something that always stuck with me is when Slash said, "Yeah, we were trying out all these lead singers, and we had some great singers come in." And then all of a sudden, you know, they had Scott Weiland coming in to try out, essentially. Scott Weiland trying out, which is a weird thing to say. You know, now looking back on it, and they said the second he walked in, he didn't even sing anything, and they said, "We think we might have the guy."
I mean,
just from how he entered the room and his demeanor. And Axl had that same demeanor, and then you can go to more modern guys. You can go to the David Draymons, you know, from Disturbed. You can go to all these guys, more modern singers that are just
Yeah, I mean,
they have this presence, you know.
I mean, I'll tell you this too. I was a big Velvet Revolver fan. I think that's the one band that had like huge potential. They could have they could have became like the next great classic rock band. But unfortunately, you know, it kind of died out. I mean, after a second album and Scott Weiland left, they were toying with the idea. I understand they actually after Scott left, they'd offered to have Corey Taylor come in and replace Scott, but for whatever reason it didn't work out. I think part of the reason is when you're Corey Taylor and you're already got your own success with the band like Slipknot, why are you going to kind of walk away from that, you know?
Yeah, Corey Taylor stays busy. Him and I figure Mark Tremonti are probably the two busiest metal guys in the world right now.
Yeah,
between all the different projects they got going on. And it's not. Oh, and Clint Lowry from Seven Dust.
Oh yeah,
these guys never stop. You know.
Yeah, and you know Guns N' Roses. Everybody's waiting to see what they do next, especially since Slash and Duff came back to the band. Supposedly they're working on new music, but who knows? I mean, Axl, everything he puts out takes 14 or 15 years to put it out. So, you know, some of us may no longer be here.
I'm in I'll believe it when I see it kind of a mood. But, you know, I'm in a group of people that's, I think, a pretty good group of people that has missed a lot of
the great bands.
Big bands, great bands that, I wasn't able to see AC/DC. You know, with the original lineup, obviously. I'm never going to be able to see them again the way it looks.
Yeah.
You know, it's...
Yeah, they're supposedly got a new album kind of in the can. That's the last thing. They found a lot of these guitar riffs that Malcolm Young had left behind, and they've kind of pieced this music together. And it was supposed to come out this year, but I think they might push it back till next year. So that's something definitely to look forward to. You know, Ian, I tell you, it's kind of interesting hearing you're influenced by bands like AC/DC and Guns N' Roses, because when I was listening to your record, or your CD rather, it sounds like there's a lot. I would expect that you guys would be kind of influenced. Like I heard a lot of kind of new metal sounds to the music. And so I'm kind of my question is do you think like you got your own influences? Obviously, the other guys got their own influences. So what ended up coming out on your CD as far as the sound of the band? Would you say that's a little bit of everybody's influence coming all together?
100%. It's an amalgamation of all that.
Yeah.
Slim, the bass player Slim, he's heavily influenced by new metal.
Oh, that's interesting.
He loves new metal. Slipknot being the heaviest of those new metal bands. You know, I like to consider them new metal. I know some people get offended for some reason or another. Big time into those kind of bands. Stu, the lead guitar player, his favorite guitar player is Zakk Wylde and Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh wow!
And he plays their licks perfectly. I might add. So he doesn't. We don't even touch his potential on this record because then it would just be Stuart Ledbetter and the Tyrants, something like that.
Well, it's interesting because like even talking about somebody like Zakk Wylde, obviously most people know him from playing with Ozzy Osbourne, but he's got his own band as well, Black Label Society, and Zack's an interesting cat because he's also, he's known for his flashy lead guitar playing. He's also a great lead singer in his own right. He, he plays the piano. He does a lot of great acoustic music. He's done stuff that's almost sounds, like country. So he's one of those guys that he can do it all.
Yeah, Zack's amazing in what he can do. Any of your listeners, if they haven't checked out Book of Shadows,
that's a great acoustic
by
sound.
Zakk, it's amazing. And if you're a country rock, like southern rock person, you gotta check out Pride. I think it's Pride and Glory.
That's what I got in my collection, and and there's a couple songs that sound almost full blown metal, and there's country tunes on there. There's like acoustic stuff. It's great, and actually, when he first put that band together, he had the original rhythm section from the band White Lion, James Lomenzo.
Really? And, I didn't know that. I did not know that.
And Greg D'Angelo. But if you look on the album, while James Lomenzo is featured on the record, they had Brian Tishy, who a lot of people know from either like playing with the Dead Daisies or Whitesnake. So, so that's one of those great lost albums a lot of people forgot about.
Well, it was a time in Zach's life before he went full Viking.
Yeah.
And started drinking super strong bulletproof coffee or
I hear you.
whatever it's called, Valhalla Java.
Yeah.
Which is, if you've ever had it, you'll shake for a week if you're not used to it.
Yeah, and it's interesting to that your band kind of has that new metal sound to it, because you tell me you're kind of influenced by some of these more classic rock guys, and that's cool as well. But like I'll tell you one thing: when new metal first came out, I remember a lot of the diehard metal fans, what they did not like about it is not only were they kind of mixing rap with metal, but a lot of those bands at the time were like, we don't do guitar solos, we don't, and it's kind of like, I remember my attitude was, well, why not? And for that period, when that music was kind of big, I was that's one of the things I kind of missed, was going to show and see. But then you had a band like Limp Bizkit that they fell under that new metal category, but a lot of people were paying attention to what they were doing, because they did have a cool guitar player, and he did do kind of these different guitar sounds, but they were one of the exceptions,
Yeah, no, they were kind of the exception. They didn't do a whole lot of guitar solos, but their guitar player, his name escapes me right now.
Yeah, but I remember at the time he was big on the scene,
Something, I think,
Wes Borland, I
Josh
think.
Brolin. It's not Josh Brolin, that's the actor.
I think it's Wes Borland or something like that.
Wes Borland, there it is.
Yeah.
Wes Borland. He can do some really cool things.
Yeah.
But he's not really a lead guitar player. And I think, I think during those new metal times...
Yeah. That's the one thing, that's kind of the one thing that was missing. I'm not saying that there weren't bands that were talented at what they did, but I think that's also a huge reason why maybe when we talk new metal, maybe the only band that people really think of is Limp Bizkit. I mean, I can't off the top of my head think of another new metal band, although I know there were plenty out there at the time.
Well, I think a lot of people say Korn invented it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that could be. Yeah.
Which I can kind of see, because they had some influence, hip-hop influence.
Yeah.
And they, Jonathan Davis threw scat into the songs, and, which is a doo-wop thing, not the eating poop thing.
Yeah.
And, which, in case some of your listeners are confused.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of detuning, drop down to, they tuned down to B.
Yeah.
And they did all this crazy stuff that no one else was doing, and the bass was used more as a percussion instrument instead of a rhythm bass line, and and then you had all these other bands that after that you had your Linkin Park, which I don't know if they're like new metal.
That's kind of weird. Linkin Park might fit in there, but I think a lot of people describe them more as like alternative or progressive. But you call it what you want, But I definitely listening to your album. I did hear elements of rap music, like for example, Fighting Gravity. To me, there is a little bit of a more radio friendly tune, but it had kind of elements of rap in it as well, and new metal. And so I was kind of curious, were you at all influenced by any of the rap acts, or even like kind of a rap metal acts?
Honestly, growing up, I didn't listen to any kind of rock until high school.
Okay.
I was big into classic music, not classic. I'm talking, Doors, Elvis.
Oh, okay.
And, things like that. And, and I think that's because of my dad. And then high school came around, and I'm not from the North Florida area. I'm originally from Miami.
Okay.
The guys I was in high school with, all of a sudden these late 90s bands, post-grunge bands, and, Metallica's S&M album came out. And I was like, oh man, this is great. And I've progressed to heavier music as I've gone. But in the last, few years, I've really started listening to a lot more hip-hop.
It's interesting, because I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'll tell you, I can definitely say there's a talent in what those guys do. I mean, I could never. I mean, just to come up with some of those raps and like they do. I mean, kind of just on the spot. I mean, there's a huge talent in what they do. I got to give them that. And then even so much when you look back that even a band like Anthrax, well, they're typically thought of as a metal band. they have endorsed themselves in the rap world, like with Public Enemy and that. So it it's out there, and and I kind of dig the fact that Scott Ian from Anthrax, while people may think of him as a metalhead, I dig the fact that he can also be into rap music, and kind of put it in Anthrax for people to kind of check out from time to time.
Well, and here's the cool thing about Scott Ian, other than the fact that we share, a similar name with Scott Ian and Ian Mackenzie.
Yeah.
I can tell you that he's gone on record. His favorite band ever to this day is Cheap Trick.
Wow.
Yeah, so you think Anthrax, you might think Public Enemy.
Yeah.
You don't normally think of, Surrender, when you think Scott Ian.
Ian, while you brought up Cheap Trick, they're one of my all-time favorite bands as well. I got to ask you, that's a perfect song you brought up, because that's the song kind of everybody knows them for, is, I Want You to Want Me, especially.
Of course.
Now I don't know, Surrender's another great song, but I Want You to Want Me, I don't know if you've ever had a chance to hear the original, studio version, and if you haven't, you should go online later and just kind of type in, I Want You to Want Me and see what comes up, but the studio version, it sounds like a completely different song. It almost sounds like a swampy, kind of slow country song. But if you listen to the version off of Live at Budokan that everybody knows, that's always been played on, it's like a different song. I mean, they really brought it to life. And the two songs, the studio version versus the live, it sounds completely different. And it's just amazing what they did with that song.
No, it's amazing because everybody knows Live at Budokan, but you might hate me for what I'm about to say. I didn't know who Cheap Trick was until I saw 10 Things I Hate About You.
Well, I imagine
and they had that band at the end singing I Want You to Want Me.
Yeah.
And then I was like, man, that's a great song. And I went online, I looked it up when I was younger, and I was like, okay, who sings this song? And I looked up the soundtrack, and I found the song. And then I found out that it was a cover, and then I got huge into like "Mommy's Alright," "Daddy's Alright."
Yeah.
These are just their hits, obviously, so they're kind of easy for everybody to know.
Oh yeah, I mean, they got a lot of their little deep cuts, but and then talk about Cheap Trick. I mean, they also back in 1987 they put out this album, and it had this great power ballad called "The Flame." If you put those two songs like The Flame next to I Want You to Want Me, completely different sounding, but Cheap Trick's one of those bands, they can kind of do it all,
No, it's amazing. Now, you're a Cheap Trick fan, and we've talked about Corey Taylor, little kind of degrees of separation.
Yeah.
Rick Nielsen is the guitar player, right?
Yeah.
Rick Nielsen has written songs with Corey Taylor or been on some of Corey Taylor's music with Dave Grohl.
Oh, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. But, while you bring up Corey Taylor, I heard he's working on a solo album, so I'll be interested when that comes out to kind of see how different it is from Slipknot. Because I'd imagine when you're doing a solo album, you want to sound a little different from what you typically do,
We'll see. I think there's at some point, some of these singers are that's you. That's your singing style. That's who you are. David Draymond came out with Device when Disturbed went on hiatus. It just sounded like a more industrial Disturbed. It was good, but you knew it was David Draymond when he was singing. You hear Corey Taylor with Stone Sour, you knew. You're like, hold on, is that... Before you even saw his face and knew who he was, you're like, this guy sounds like the same guy from Slipknot. When you heard Sammy Hagar, you're like, hold on, is that the guy from...
Montrose?
Montrose? It's like, what? Hold on.
Yeah, it's funny. You made a lot of great points during this interview, bringing that up, because a lot of people, when they hear of a Montrose name, they think of that one album with Sammy Hagar, but they did a lot more than just that. And if people take the time to kind of check out what else they did, you'd be amazed at how great it is.
Montrose is one of those bands that's kind of, if you're a fan, you're a fan.
Yeah.
You might have known a few songs.
Yeah.
I put them in the same category as Flotsam and Jetsam.
Oh yeah. Well,
where if you know who they are. You know who they are.
Yeah, I can tell you with me, I've heard the name Flotsam and Jetsam, and probably like a lot of people, what do I know Flotsam and Jetsam for? That's the band Jason Newstead came from before Metallica. Yeah.
That's exactly it. And then you're like, okay, well, that's all you know about them.
Yeah.
And then then you find out, Jason Newstead went to Voivod after Metallica.
Even
I
Ozzy.
didn't know who Voivod was.
Yeah, even Ozzy. Yeah. And
played with Ozzy, but Ozzy's had some of the best musicians ever,
Yeah, and Jason Newstead, he's one of my all-time favorite bass players. And the thing that's interesting about him is he's hugely talented. I mean, he can sing lead, he can write, and he even did that little Newstead project. He put out an EP and a full length, and he got like a huge response. But oddly enough, he shut it all down all of a sudden because he's like, it just cost me as much as people were into the band and coming to the shows and buying the albums. It costs more money to keep the band going. It was almost breaking me.
Well, yeah, if you want to go around doing it like a rock star, yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. At that point,
I guess
you can get into the business side of the P&L report if you want, but that's not the very rock star thing that anybody ever wants to listen to. So
and I guess he's at a point in life where, he's made his money, doesn't really need to worry about it. But getting back to what you do, now you guys have an album I think comes out the 31st, which is next week.
Yes, sir.
And so let me ask, as far as your album, is it going to be available like physical copies digitally, or what are you guys doing with that?
Well, right now we have physical copies for sale at our online merch store, which you can find through our Facebook page. It's a Square site. Pretty easy to navigate. You go there and you can either buy the CD for $10 or you can buy a signed copy for $15.
Wow.
Plus shipping, because we're out of Amazon and we can't afford free shipping.
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah.
But you can always buy the album through iTunes, or you can go on Spotify. And from what I've been told, it's going to be on every streaming platform. But right now it's up for pre-order on iTunes if you want to go get that.
That's cool. I love to really talk about that because first of all, I gotta say, and I respect. I mean, you're a new band, so what are you gonna do? But I respect the fact that a band like you would even bother putting out music, because there are a lot of bands, especially the more established bands, that kind of live on their legacy. Is that let's be honest, who's buying CDs these days? They kind of live off their past, and some bands can do that. But like I said, I dig the fact that we're going to get a new album from this great new band, Defy The Tyrant, and people can check it about that. But then there are those people that'll just going to buy the single, and they can do that. But I prefer to kind of support the band and say, go out and support the band, buy the album, as opposed to just buying the single, because especially with the current the world being what it currently is, big way bands used to, until just recently, make their money was live performances, and you're not able to do that right now. So so how is that affecting you guys in the new release?
And it fucking blows.
That's cool.
That was how we were supporting ourselves. That was how we got that's how we paid for recordings. That's how we paid for tours. That's how we paid, for gas. Everything was get on the road, perform, get to the next show. Weekend Warrior, hit it for a couple weeks, so on and so forth. And for everything to just kind of stop.
So, and you guys are based out of, did you say Florida?
Yeah, we're based out of Tallahassee, Florida.
And so now Florida's been hit really big by the COVID, but how about around where you live? Is it a huge problem as far as people getting it a lot?
We're based in Tallahassee. Leon County is in the Panhandle. It's, I think, the hardest hit area. We're not as bad off as Miami-Dade or Orlando.
Yeah, that's kind of what I heard.
As far as the COVID stuff, but we're not exactly insulated.
Yeah, I bring it up only because, who would have thought, 2020, the world would become kind of what it has. And so much, you got to deal with the lockdowns and all this. I live in California, and things were starting to get back to normal. And now all of a sudden the governor's threatening, we're going to shut more things down. We were getting ready to open the movie theaters. I don't know if we'll ever allow the movie theaters to open again. And what kind of I trip out on it. I listen to the news every day. This governor give us a daily update, and like they've already we have an annual. You've probably seen like Hollywood Christmas parade. They've already decided they're going to cancel that. There's not going to be a Hollywood Rose parade. And then so they're at the point now where they're already getting into 2021 what they're going to start canceling. I'm like, how can you guys start canceling things so far ahead in advance? You know? And I'll tell you a funny story. Like I said, things are starting to get back to normal here in California where I live. I went to the store the other day, and all of a sudden, people are hoarding toilet paper again. You can only get one thing of toilet paper. They're running out of water, and I'm like, who would have thought in 2020 toilet paper would be the big commodity? I mean, and so much to the point I couldn't believe I spent $20 on getting toilet paper just because they were running out.
See,
and they only had the one size, of course, you know.
Here's my problem with that.
Yeah.
Who is waiting until they are completely out of toilet paper to go buy a shit ton of toilet paper?
Well, the funny thing is I almost think the stores and the manufacturers are planning it because, like, it was a huge problem at first, and then they're limiting you to what you can and can't buy, and it's like, well, I better get it now, you know. It's really that become that huge of a problem just within the last couple of days, and it's amazing, you know. It almost makes
that's completely ridiculous. Why toilet paper of all things?
Yeah, I mean, I ponder myself asking that, but that's just kind of funny. But you know, getting back to the album, I was kind of curious. So these albums, the songs that are on the album, I'm assuming these are songs you've had for years. You've written over the last couple of years. Like, how far back do some of these songs go?
A couple of the songs go all the way back to when we first started writing. But they go all the way up to less than a year ago. Bones, which is what the name record's called, has the song Bones is on there. And we wrote that less than a year ago. You know?
Oh, wow. Yeah, and the reason I asked that is because, you know, oftentimes you find, especially when bands put out their debut album, these are songs that have been laying around for, you know, several years or within the last couple of years, and I think, like, so even if there's a song on there, say you wrote 10 years ago, whatever the case may be, a good tune is still a good tune. It doesn't matter if it's just a freshly new, you know. That's my point. And over time, I would imagine other things have happened in your life that have influenced you to write different songs. But and this I understand is like picking your favorite child. But is there a tune or two on here that really that you really like?
Oh, my favorite song is Tightrope.
Oh, okay, yeah, I kind of dug that just because of the different kind of sounds throughout the song. You know, it's the most eclectic song. It has I think it has 4 different time signatures. Yeah.
It goes from just brutally heavy to just absolutely peaceful to brutally heavy. I'm also a little bit, you know, biased towards it because I get to play those fun little lead parts during the verses.
Okay. Wow.
So, but that's just during the verses. I don't do that solo. That solo is all Stu.
Okay.
And his amazing fingers.
And yeah, you know, I just say it from top to bottom. You know, and that's the other question. I think you got 7. We get 7 tunes on here. So, is that? I imagine you have other tunes, but you just like 7's a good number to kind of stop at, kind of see how people respond to this.
Essentially, we didn't want to put too much into it because you know, you don't want to end up recording all this stuff and then it doesn't quite work out or something doesn't. We figured leave them wanting a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, if they like the record, then they're going to want more.
Yeah.
We're already starting the process of getting the next one done.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool idea. Like, kind of like you say, leave them wanting more. Because I can tell you honestly, if you ask for a fair review of the album, my only complaint I could honestly say is, you know, I would have liked maybe to have 3 more tunes, but okay, I liked it this much. It's, you know, worth waiting for the next one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's kind of a strategy nowadays. Everybody wants to buy singles.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. And you know, the interesting thing with that is, like here's the thing. like I can hear all the different influences, like we were talking about rap, new metal, old metal. But the one thing there's no doubt about is you guys are obviously a metal band. That's the main thing that runs throughout all the songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
100%.
And I will say this, you know, when you're listening to something for the first time, especially like a new up-and-coming band you've never heard before, a lot of times people will sit there, okay, these guys sound like Metallica, Motorhead, or Sabbath, or whatever the case may be. And I can honestly say you guys got a fresh, original sound in the sense that, you know, it's been a number of years since I've heard anything that's even come close to sounding like new metal. And I think it's cool you guys were able to kind of infuse all these different influences, you know, rap, new metal, classic metal, old school metal, and come up with what you came up with. Because I listened to all 7 songs, and I cannot say it reminded me of Black Sabbath or Motorhead or Metallica. It just something like I haven't heard in years, and it's a cool, fresh sound. You guys really got your own sound, you know, in these 7 songs.
Well, I gotta tell you, that's partially, you know, thank you, one.
Yeah.
But again, that has to do with the state we live in. Florida. Florida has this weird underground, only Florida music scene. Because it's so long, you know. So, to get from the North Florida to South Florida, it takes almost 10 hours.
Yeah, like I heard when Marilyn Manson was first coming out that he was big in Florida, had a huge following.
Well, he's from Miami. You know, that's where he started off, down there. And I played a lot of those venues down there, and he was big down there, Non-Point, from Miami.
Wow.
But you also had, you know, you brought up earlier Limp Bizkit. They're from Jacksonville, so it's Stained and Cold, or no, Cold is, but not Stained. Cold is from Jacksonville. Then you got, but you can go all the way back, you know, Leonard Skinner.
Oh yeah. That's a great band.
Tallahassee has a history of music too. I mean, most people scoff at it, you know, because it's Creed, but you know, but Tallahassee's had big bands come out of it. Orlando, you got what? You got Tremonti down in Orlando right now. They just started recording a new album.
Wow.
You got Elvis Baskerville, who's been recording Seven Dust.
Oh, wow.
He's been recording Tremonti, Alter Bridge, Slash. All these people, it's all coming out of Orlando nowadays. You know, so...
That's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't aware of it, but that's cool. You know, Limp Bizkit is kind of interesting because, well, they're one of those bands people kind of remember. Fred Durst these days has kind of become not so much known for his music, but more for his acting and getting involved with like reality projects. So he's kind of gone the other direction.
Yeah, he's more infamous than he is famous at this point.
Kind of like Vanilla Ice. We've heard the name, but you know, who is that? Who is that? Now, just a few more questions before we wrap this up. I'd like to ask you about
I talk a lot.
No, that's good actually, because you know I've and so do I obviously, but I've done interviews where you ask somebody a question, yes, no, yes. It's kind of boring, so at least this keeps the flow going. But as far as recording goes, did you guys kind of do it the modern way? Were you in the same studio? Did you each guy kind of record his parts separately and you pieced everything together? How did that work?
The studio, we record up in Nashville, Tennessee. That's where we record. The guy we use, you might know who he is. His name's Brett Hessla. He was the lead singer of Dark New Day.
Oh, no, I never heard of that.
Fergus Merlot.
I'll have to look that up. Okay, wow.
Yeah. He had, I think the biggest song that he's done as an engineer, as a producer, is that cover of Lollipop.
Oh, okay.
That was all over the place for a while.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He recorded that.
That's what you're talking about?
Frankie Hanley. He was also a touring member of Creed for a while.
Okay, so
he's been in the music scene for a long time.
Wow.
What we do is we go up to his house. He was in Orlando, and then he moved to Nashville. So what we do is we go up to Nashville, and we go to the studio, and it's just the studio. We don't go do any of the other Nashville stuff, really.
Wow.
You know, which it's hard to do. Trust me, there's a lot of stuff to do in Nashville. but we go up there and we try and get all the scratch tracks done, and that's done mostly with the band. And then what we'll do is we'll start doing a little bit more of the modern take but we don't cut and paste. I don't like the cut and paste method. I don't know. There's something about it gives this soulless feel to everything.
I mean, it sounds like when you hear about stuff, it sounds good. It sounds really slick and polished. I guess that's the way it's supposed to sound. But I remember, back in the days, like you were talking about AC/DC when I was growing up, and bands at the time were putting stuff out. They would actually be in the room together. They'd record it live, and you can kind of tell the difference. That's why I was asking. I mean,
you can tell the difference. Each track that we do a full take of the song.
Wow.
So we do the scratch tracks, then we sit down, and the drummer goes through the song, and it might take 3 or 4 times to get it right. But then he's done with that song, and he's on to the next song to perfect, And then bass player, Slim gets on there, and it'll take him 1 or 2 takes to get the whole song recorded.
Wow.
But we don't do this whole, okay, do the verse, okay, now take the verse, cut it over here, because it's essentially the same part, and we'll go into the program and change things here, and here. No, we actually play the song from beginning to end. I think a great song to hear that in is when you hear Bones. Bones, I don't use pedals live. And I don't use pedals in the studio. I control my clean tone by rolling the volume off.
Oh, wow.
Or I switch to a bridge pickup and a neck pickup. It's something Slash did that I picked up a long time ago.
Wow.
So and it's easier because then I don't have to worry about a pedal board.
Wow.
I just I can walk around, I flip my switch on the guitar, and I get my full-blown, in-your-face sound.
Oh, wow.
And then I switch, and it goes to a nice, kind of crunchy, clean sound. But that's how I did it in the studio. So when we're going from this heavy, riff-laden part to all of a sudden this verse, I'm literally in the studio flipping a switch and turning the volume down. And that little bit of difference, instead of just being cut and paste, okay, just play it clean now. You can kind of feel that, just that little split-second volume roll-off gives it a soul that a lot of other recordings just don't have nowadays.
Yeah, and another thing I want to ask you about, Ian, that's kind of interesting listening to the record is, don't get me wrong, the singer you guys got, he's great at what he does, but the music is so unique sounding that, one thing I noticed when I was listening to it is, because you don't necessarily have to pay attention to the lyrics or the words necessarily, the music kind of it's almost like hypnotic, it almost keeps you in a trance, where I found myself not so much listening to the lyrics like I typically would do when listening to music. I was kind of more drawn because the music part is so heavy, and you're kind of paying attention to that.
Yeah, thank you. We work really hard. We don't have just one person writing a song, bringing it to the band, and saying, "Okay, here it is."
That's interesting.
Just play it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Every song is
eclectic.
It takes us weeks to write a song.
Oh, wow.
And then it takes another few months to perfect it.
Yeah, when you guys are writing, do you kind of, you start with the lyrics, let's say, and when you start working on your guitar parts, you sit in a circle, kind of jam it out first?
Man, every song's been a little bit different, but for the most part, we practice more than most bands. At least bands at our level do. So usually this practice session starts off with just playing some riffs and having fun. Nothing's written, just, all right, here's a beat, here's some riffs, and we just go back and forth, and we have a lot of fun doing it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you got to be able to jam out as a musician.
Yeah.
So then something good will happen, and we live in an age where I can literally pull out my phone, open up GarageBand, which is a recording DAW.
Wow.
Hit record. I record it, and then I take those riffs, and this is what we've done the last few songs. I take those riffs, go home, get on my iPad, and then I record. I get everything recorded that way, just as a rough, take it to the guys and say, this is what we did, what do we like and what don't we like, and what we did, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, let's do that. This sounds great. And then we'll just keep jamming it out until it comes up. And
Put that together. Yeah, wow. That's a great way of doing it, you know? And I got to say, you guys are on a great little label there at Pavement Entertainment. One thing I love about your label is, number one, the fact that it was started and it's owned by a guy that's actually, he's a professional musician himself. He's lived the life, if you will. And I dig the fact, like Tim King, he's a bass player from a metal band called Soil. So you'd expect he's going to sign nothing but metal bands, but they've got everything on the roster from like Candlebox, which was a huge alternative band in the early 90s. They went away for a while and came back. But they've come back bigger and better. And they've had everything from, you know, rap music on that label to, you know, kind of like you guys. And that's what I dig. Every time they sign like a new band, it's something a little different than was on the label before. So like I'd imagine you guys, if you were able to tour, you have a bunch of label mates you'd be able to, you know, set up a tour with, which would be cool.
Yeah, man, we're really hoping that we can start touring here soon.
Yeah.
You know, there's no telling. Everything's been canceled. Our entire year we had shows we were working on, national tours we were looking at because of the record coming out. Being on a label that can actually help you get on these things and having management that pushes you properly. Yeah, and
on that note, I was curious, how did you guys hook up with the label? Did you reach out to them or did they reach out to you?
I reached out to them. I've been in other projects before where labels reached out to us.
Yeah.
But it's just not like that anymore.
Oh yeah.
It isn't. You have to just hit everybody, constantly message, email, contact, Facebook message,
and
everything.
And I don't mean this as an insult, but like how many rejections did you get before these people said, hey, we like what we hear, you know?
Jeez, we had
enough, right?
How many? We had a good amount. We actually, I think we had a come to Jesus moment, you know, quote unquote come to Jesus moment.
I'm not looking for a number here, but I guess my point I'm making here is, you know, after you know, you reach out to so many labels and you get that kind of rejection, if you will, to get a label like this, you had to have been also, like you said, you had a Jesus moment. Thank you Jesus moment, you know. Hey man, look, these guys are reaching out to us. They want to hear what we can do. Or they like what they hear, you know.
It was nice. It kind of makes you feel like it's worth it, you know, when you get these people who can take you to a different level. Notice the hard work that you're putting in.
And see, that's the whole thing. I mean, success is different things to different people, but I'd imagine at that point, you got your little band going, you're trying to create a record, and then, okay, we got someone that wants to put it out. It's almost kind of like you're living the dream somewhat, you know. That's got to be a great feeling once the album comes out next week and people start buying it, you know.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge, you know, and we're lucky enough that we have some label mates and some ex-label mates that are currently charting or going to be charting in.
So that gives you some hope.
Farewell to Fear and New Dilemma.
Oh, well.
You know?
Well, and let me ask you, in that regard, since you guys are not able to tour right now, any plans for a video?
Yeah, we have a lyric video out for Tightrope, which is kind of like a little teaser for the album. It gives an idea of how the whole album kind of sounds a little bit. We have another video that we've recorded for Fighting Gravity.
Okay. Now that's a tune
it's unreleased.
Yeah, that's a tune I kind of really dug, so I'd say that's a good one to look forward to.
That's a good one. And then we're currently in talks to work on a video for Bone.
Now let me ask you, like you said you have one for Tightrope. How involved were you in the band with the creation of a video?
We're pretty heavily involved in what we wanted the direction of the video to go. Because it's a lyric video, I kind of let Kurt, our lead singer, because he wrote the lyrics. And I said, Kurt, these are your lyrics.
So you do what you want with it.
Yeah, you kind of take the reign, and we use a company called Kill Devil Films.
Okay.
Based out of Jacksonville.
Wow.
To do it.
Yeah.
And they came out really well. So well that we're thinking about using them for the next video.
But that's cool.
Kind of up in the air.
Yeah, and I meant to ask you, when you said you guys went down to Nashville to record, that's got to be a cool little place to go to. I mean, even just kind of get away like, how long were you down there? I mean, it's got to be great to be able to kind of get outside of your normal Florida area and kind of go somewhere else. That must have a huge influence as far as writing songs and have albums and so on.
It's great. Being able to get away from the day-to-day is key. And being able to concentrate on only music for a few days. Now, when we go and record, we only go for a few days at a time, and then we're back home. And then we go for a few days at a time. And so we don't have the kind of money that we can just go stay up there for a few months.
Oh, okay, but at the same time, I'd imagine even if you go to, for a weekend, you record 3 or 4 tracks, and then you come back like 2 months later, that's got to kind of affect the sound of the album or how the songs come out, because I imagine writing something in Florida or what's going on in your life, 2 months ago, it's going to have a different feel, but that's kind of cool that you get to get away and do that.
Thank you. Yeah, it is great, and being able to know that we're not going to have the exact same guitar tones on every track, and the bass is always going to sound a little bit different here and there. Because again, I think it's a little bit too much of this cut and paste culture that people are in right now. Yeah, I agree.
And Nashville is kind of interesting because while many people think of it as a country music capital of the world, it's interesting because a lot of the 80s rock guys, like even some of the guys from Motley Crue, I think Mick Mars and Vince Neil have moved up to Nashville, and some of these guys are writing songs for other people. And it's so much to the point that they start calling Nashville Music City.
Hey, Nashville right now?
Yeah.
Have you ever been?
I've never been. I've always kind of wanted to go, especially for the last few years since I've seen, what the music scene's become down there.
Well, what part of California are you in?
Well, I'm Long Beach specifically. If you've ever been to the Queen Mary or anything like that, that's kind of near where I am.
I've been in the area. I've flown in I went to California a few years back for Slipknot meets. Or Knotfest meets Ozfest.
Oh wow, that's quite a show.
Great show, great event, and I stayed in San Bernardino.
Oh wow, okay.
And drove into the LA area.
Yeah, that's about an hour away from where I am, but okay, wow, that's cool. And
yeah.
And I guess the final question I got is, since you are unable to tour right now, I don't know if you've seen a lot of bands are still going online and they're creating kind of these little performances for their fans, doing we're in the recording studio today, join us at 5 p.m. or we're performing from our backyard or whatever the case may be. Have you guys thought of doing any special event like that online?
We did a pre-recorded concert that at a local venue here in Tallahassee, and we were kind of the guinea pigs. I think the first ones to do it.
And what was your experience like? What was your experience?
It came out pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think a lot of the problems people have with these recordings that are done online is they're mixing them as if they're some sort of live album.
Wow.
Mix them as if they're a CD. Don't mix them because then you get all these weird microphone things happening.
That's actually what I kind of been thinking. I'm surprised more people they're having these special performances they're putting on like that, and you don't know when you're going to get out to kind of perform live again. I'm really surprised people haven't thought of that idea. Let's make a CD of this, and if people like it, we can actually sell it. Have a little extra merchandise to sell. Yeah, and it's been great talking to you. Before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you: is there an album, a CD in your record collection, whatever the case may be, that you could kind of point to and say, that's the band, that's the album that really kind of had a major influence on what I'm doing? Hello?
Sorry, I lost you there.
I'm sorry. I was saying, is there an album, a CD in your collection that you can kind of point to and say, that's the album that did it for me, that's the band that really inspired me to do what I'm doing on the guitar?
Oh, man.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is I've been interviewing folks about kind of asking them, what's your favorite album or what? And a lot of these people you see have been making a list on Facebook these are my top 10 or my top 20 albums. Just kind of I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just give you an example, Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion, or Appetite for Just whatever the case may be.
I think The first album that I bought.
There you go. That's a good choice.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
The first rock album that I purchased, that I truly purchased with my money, was Creed's "My Own Prison."
Oh,
right?
wow! That's a great choice. Wow.
Yeah, not a very heavy, thing, but in Florida they were huge before they got national. They were big in Florida, and then I listened to that. But then I think the album that actually did it for me, is I was walking in high school, and I looked down, and there was a CD on the ground with tapes down. And I said, CD.
Yeah.
And I picked it up, and I turned it over, and it was Appetite for Destruction.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And I didn't even look around to see if anybody was looking for it. I immediately took it, pocketed it.
Wow. Yeah.
And then when I got to my car at the end of the day, I wiped it off to make sure it would play, put it in the CD player, and that hit me.
Oh, wow.
And I said, holy shit, what is this? Then after that, I think I'll give you a third one.
Okay, that's great.
That really is Bush, 16 Stone.
Okay, wow. Okay, that's a great choice. We're going to wrap it up right now. I want to thank you, Ian, for doing this. It's great getting to know you.